Bryan Dawe, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
You've got two events here at Montserrat. The first is your art exhibition here, and as part of the Montserrat Festival, you're having a talk on the satirist's journey. Can we talk a little bit about that first?
It's a journey, and so basically it's a talk about where I started and my influences, and basically the underlying message is a young kid being told that they can't do things. And I was told that I can't do any of the things that I ended up doing. And I suppose if that's a message in the talk, it's about never tell a young kid they can't do something. I was told I could never work on radio, could never be an actor, could never be a writer, didn't even get to art, because I came from the wrong background. In other words, a working class background in Port Adelaide. And I was told what happened is my father died at 15 and I left school because I was, boredom is not quite the word, really. It's way beyond there. And so I left, and that's what I was told, that I couldn't do all these things. And so there was a far-sighted genius involved in this who was a career advisory officer. And he told me this, that I couldn't do that. And so I wrote it down. And one of the great things that happened was eventually I was asked to go back over to Adelaide, to my school, to my high school, and MC their 100th celebrations. And I very naughtily said to them, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to spite you, not because of you. So the night went down fairly downhill after that, but that's what the talk's about. And I talk about, working with my characters, Rolly and Sonia Parks, and my other characters, Murray Rivers, and of course, John Clark. And so it covers a fair territory.
So the world knows you as a comedian or a satirist, but you're also a celebrated artist. How long have you been producing your artwork?
Well, I'm told by the curator of this exhibition, Krista McClellan, who's very responsible for a lot of this, that this is the 14th exhibition I've had. So it goes back about 12 years, but I had a brief break for about 5 years in between because I didn't quite know where I wanted to take it all, and I wasn't enamoured with galleries all that much. And then I was in Tangier in Morocco, living there for a little while, and the night before I came back, an art gallery owner said, oh, you're coming back next year, do you want to have an exhibition? So I came back to Australia and put together an exhibition of work that was nothing like anything I'd ever done. And that's what kick-started these. And I've had, 3 last year and this one.
And what medium do you use?
Well, it's varied, but it's all done on an iPad, using apps, using all sorts of different apps. I mean, most people who are cognizant with Photoshop would say you just do it on Photoshop, you can do all this. But I've never enjoyed Photoshop as a concept, and so I just picked the little apps that were around that did exactly what I wanted them to do, and I still do that. I've got just play, really. So I don't have any set thing. This is a lot more of my painting and drawing, because on the iPad now there are so many good painting and drawing apps that weren't available even when I did the Tangier exhibition. And now there are, and you keep at it and hope you don't trip over the furniture on the way and end up with some work, but yeah.
So tell me about your experience in Tangiers.
Well, it began with a man called Sandy McCutcheon, who used to work on the ABC and did Australia Overnight. And he lives with his family in Fez permanently now, and they invited me when they came back to Australia, excuse me, to look after their house in Fez. And that started the romance with Morocco, and that was 7 trips ago. And then I discovered Tangier, which I'd been through 2 or 3 times but never stopped, because everyone said, oh, don't stay in Tangier, it's a bit like Marseille, it's a bit... And then one day an Australian woman in Fez said to me, she said, you know what, you need to go and stay in Fez, in Tangier for a while. She said, I think Tangier and you were made for each other. And I got there, spent a week, fell in love with it, and then met the art gallery owner who said, have the exhibition. And so last year I lived there for 5 months and did some of this work. But that was where it began, and that's just grown from there, you know. But I do love Tangier particularly, partly because it's a port town, and I grew up in a port town, and I love port towns. So it's like Marseille. I went to Marseille and I went, oh yeah, this is easy. This is Tangier with French language. Yeah, I can't not be around water. I could never live inland. I admire people who can, but I've just got to have that water, you know, around me or near me. I don't even have to go in it. I just know that it's there.
So you like to find the edges?
Yeah.
Are you planning on returning?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, probably early next year, and I'm going to go and spend some time in Porto, in Portugal, again on water, and with one of the great rivers, of course, in the Douro.
Your art exhibition is called Interlude. So where does that come from?
I just made it up one day, really. I could give you a complex answer that wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. When you go looking for a title, you just got to be aware that you don't want it to be pretentious, but what is it saying? Interlude. And it probably was from an interlude from what I was doing before, and now it's moved somewhere else, and this was the bit in between. What do you notice next door to you here?
There'd be a piano here.
A grand piano. I walked in the door, and that inspired me to do all those with the instruments. I don't know why. I just went, yep.
Music.
And music. And I mean, I've you know, my stuff is pretty regular. It's circus, theatre, abandoned buildings I love, and the music is part of it. Like I did Tango series, which is also part of this. But yeah, the music stuff's a bit hard, and the shape of the piano is beautiful, and the shape of the violin's beautiful, and you know, so that's not hard.
So how do you go about mixing the two disciplines? Do you find them complementary or conflicting?
I don't even think about it, to be honest. It's just one of those things where, you know, boredom is as John Clark used to say, boredom is the driving force of all art. And if you're not doing one thing, then you've got to look around and make sure boredom is kept at bay. And so when John passed away, that was the end of our 30-year relationship and the end of me doing political satire on television, because there was no one else I was ever going to work with or wanted to. And so I was incredibly lucky at the same time that I was doing this and having the Tangier exhibition and then going back there after he passed away to get away from it all for a while. So I don't see any conflict whatsoever, but it doesn't clash in any way, because I'm not trying to be satirical with these. If any of them become satirical, then it's by accident more than design. Ironic maybe, there's a bit of that going on with some of them, but no, I don't. I try not to think about it. Seriously, it's almost the opposite of, so as a satire. Yeah, in a way, yeah, and it's a release from all that, the politics and the, you know, which bores me senseless. I mean, what inspires you? It's a very hard thing to say. All sorts of things. Like I said, I can look at a piano and there were 5 works that came out of just looking at that piano. So they're just things that happen, and you go down that trail and see what happens and make sure you get home without hurting yourself.
Thanks for joining us, Bryan.
It's been an absolute pleasure.